Infectious disease experts are calling this strain different. It's called Subclade K. It's a mutated strain of influenza that's causing concern for the weeks ahead, especially as flu season ramps up. Doctors say the mutations may influence how effective the flu vaccine is going to be for the current season, but health officials say it's still important to get the flu vaccine. That's because this latest strain is just one of 3 that typically circulate in a season, and getting vaccinated will provide some protection. Doctors say if you're protected and get sick from the flu, those symptoms may be less severe. Health experts say it appears many Americans are skipping their flu vaccines this year. Last winter's flu season was severe. The U.S. had its highest rates of flu hospitalizations in nearly 15 years, and at least 280 children died of influenza last season.
What is up, regular offenders? Welcome back to No One Watches RD for your latest installment of unwatchable content. In today's video, no one is going to watch is a Subclade K update, and it's been just under a week, 6 days to be precise, since I first uploaded my Subclade K What You Need to Know video, and in the subsequent days following we have had a development and some more breaking news coming out of the United States of America. And in that initial upload just 6 days ago at time of recording, I highlighted and pointed out a breaking story that had been developing from the previous 2 weeks. So that would have been about 3 weeks ago now that this story first broke about this mutant strain of influenza that goes by the name of Subclade K. And in that initial upload, we looked how it had already impacted Japan to the point that Japan has declared an epidemic, and it had also made its way to the shores of the United Kingdom and to Canada, and had even found its way across the border into the United States. And since that last upload just under a week ago, in fact within the last 3 days, there has been a few more articles and stories breaking about this suddenly showing up in a few states around the United States of America. And there are also a few videos and articles that have been coming out within the last few hours about Subclade K, and we also have some video footage to see from Japan, from a news station over there, reporting on this developing Subclade K mutant variant flu virus. So we have a few articles to get through today, and I'm not here to cause any alarm or here to predict that we are in store for yet another pandemic. I'm just here to report on a developing story, and I'm not here to provide any medical advice whatsoever. That is down to the viewer's discretion to get their own personal medical advice and options on to what precautions or no precautions to take regarding this raising concerns that are growing now over Subclade K, now that it has found its way to the United States of America. And you know, in that first upload and in this upload, I am going to sort of point out the only thing that I will say of importance is there are a lot of echoes from the COVID story as it developed, sort of developing in a sort of similar part of the world, and hearing sort of a few cases of it here and there. Is this going to develop into a full-on blown pandemic? I can't say for sure. All I'm saying that at the moment there are even more echoes from COVID as this story develops. So I'm going to hand you over right now to that Japanese news story that came out just a few hours ago. I think 4 hours ago this video dropped on YouTube. It has been auto-dubbed, so do forgive any sort of indiscretions in mispronunciations that may occur during this. It's only a few minutes old, but it's very interesting because it's sort of the first story that I have come across, or first video that I've come across coming out of Japan. As always, folks, make of it what you will. We do have a couple of videos and a few articles. This isn't going to be a long one, so let's go and watch that Japanese news report.
The influenza epidemic is ongoing. A
New variant Subclade is believed to be spreading in the prefecture, particularly among children. Its characteristics include the need to be aware of hidden influenza. The waiting area for symptomatic people in Nagano City was crowded this morning. Influenza tests are constantly being conducted. There are
Cotton swabs on both flowers. The
test kits showed red lines indicating fairies one after another. This woman's child already had the flu, and there was a high possibility that she herself would be infected, so she decided to wait in her car. The results showed influenza type A normally.
The flu season starts around
mid-December to January. But this year, infections have been seen since the beginning of September, and a new strain of influenza virus called Subclade K has spread rapidly in the Northern Hemisphere, including the UK, Canada, and Japan. According to the National Institute for Health and Emergency Management, 96% of the cases currently spreading are of the Subclade variant. The number of muscles and joints in the whole body are not very strong, and it is said that the so-called hidden influenza, known as flu, is more common this year. It is highly contagious, and it is spreading especially among children. This parent and child have a
fever, but they are fine, so I wonder what is going on.
How high was their fever? 30. It was 38.1 last night and went down to 37 today. Let me see the
test results. Both of them are fine with the flu.
Oh, that's good, yeah. They are fine, but the child at my workplace is also taking time off with the flu. Oh, and it's spreading in kindergartens too.
Oh, and in the prefecture, the number of infected people per medical period exceeded 1 person, which is the benchmark for the start of an epidemic, in September, and this month it suddenly exceeded double digits and has been increasing steadily. The epidemic is starting 2 months earlier than usual. As soon as possible. I think it would be a good idea for those who haven't been vaccinated. According to Miyazawa Ishii, the flu vaccine is effective in preventing severe illness, especially against mutant subclades.
Right guys, this first article of the day comes from medicalexpress.com, and it was actually uploaded only 2 hours ago, and it says flu season has started early this year and a new variant might be to blame, which is something we heard in the previous Subclade K video. But every winter, respiratory viruses, especially influenza, SARS-CoV-2 and RSV, put huge pressure on healthcare systems throughout Europe. In a typical season, flu causes up to 50 million symptomatic cases and anywhere from 15,000 to 70,000 deaths per year on the continent. All age groups are affected, although children have the highest infection rates and are often the first to catch the disease and spread it in their homes. It is estimated that up to 20% of the population contracts flu each year. The flu viruses that normally infect humans belong mainly to 2 types. Influenza A, the most variable, responsible for most seasonal epidemics and all known flu pandemics, and influenza B, which circulates almost exclusively in humans. There are many different subtypes of influenza A, depending on how their word I can't read and another word I can't read proteins combine. But the subtypes currently circulating in humans are H1N1, including the 20,009 pandemic variant, which is now seasonal, and HGN2. These subtypes can make each season due to a small mutations or antigenic drift. Influenza B has two lineages, B Victoria and B Yamamagata. B Yamamagata has hardly been detected since 2020. We all know what happened in 2020, don't we, folks? And this is echoing a little bit strongly to that story we heard when we first heard news of a bat-infected soup causing an outbreak of a mutant strain of coronavirus in the Wuhan region of China. But flu virus's variability is why vaccines are prepared each year with a mix of 3 or 4 of the viruses that circulated the previous year. But what is happening this autumn? Flu season has started a few weeks earlier than in previous years. Japan, for instance, has been recording an unusually high number of cases since October. In the European Union, flu is appearing unusually earlier. In Spain, for instance, the epidemic threshold has already been exceeded a few weeks earlier than expected. Another new development is the clear predominance of the A/H3N2 virus, specifically the Subclade K. Although the A/H1N1 virus predominated this year in the southern hemisphere, and the Subclade K of this A/H3N2 only took off at the end. We heard this in the previous one, repeating the narrative. And it ended up being predominant in the United Kingdom and Japan, when 90% of flu samples in these countries are now assigned to H3N2, the Subclade K. The United States and Canada now seem to be following the similar trend. We heard that it had made its way into Canada and had only just entered the United States in that previous video about Subclade K. And as we're about to discover, within the last 3 or 4 days, there's been a rise on articles reporting of multiple outbreaks of this in multiple states. Not going to be causing alarm. I'm not saying that this is going to develop into a full-blown pandemic, but we have heard this story before, and this story has developed in the last 6 days since I reported on this, and it has, as we have will discover, made its way into the United States. But it accounted for 1/3 of all of those cases analysed between May and November 2025 worldwide, and almost half of the EU. Subclade K is different, but not necessarily more harmful. The genetic changes in Subclade K of the A/H3N2 virus do not come from recombination or mixing of viruses, which probably is where exactly it come from. They're just telling you it didn't to sort of deter you from thinking that. And do not represent a major change. It's actually the same H3N2 virus that has been circulating amongst humans since 1968, but with some mutations in its genes. This is to be expected as each season the flu virus evolves through mutation to escape our immune system. Some years it is more successful than others. Mutations in this new subclade do not appear to affect the efficiency of antiviral drugs, nor are they associated with increased virulence or disease severity. In fact, the Eastern Asian countries now reporting a decline in Subclade K cases have not experienced an unusually high severity of illness. Furthermore, analysis suggests that the Subclade K strains circulating in these countries do not differ from those currently present in the EU, and the good news therefore is that Subclade K does not seem to be more virulent or cause more severe disease. Does this mean more cases? H3N2 has not been the dominant influenza virus in recent season. It has usually been the H1N1. This could lead to lower immunity in the population due to a lack of recent exposure to A/stroke H3N2. In addition, seasons dominated by this pathogen tend to be more severe with lower vaccine efficiency and more serious cases in older adults than in seasons dominated by a H1N1. Vaccine protection. To create flu vaccine, scientists use data from previous year to predict which strains of the virus are likely to be the most prevalent over the coming year. This season's vaccine was designed to protect against two subtypes of a H1N1 influenza B and a type of a H3N2 that predates the new Subclade K. If only they'd waited a little bit longer. But some analyses show a divergence of Subclade K from the vaccine strain of H3N2. Although data on vaccine effectiveness in the real world is currently limited, if vaccine efficiency is reduced, we can expect more cases of flu. Monitoring this season is crucial to determine how much protection vaccines are provided. And it says there, we'll skip down to the bottom, the recommendation of this author is to get vaccinated as soon as possible. And lastly, it is important to emphasize the importance of hand washing and wearing a mask if you suspect that you are effective. This will prevent the spread of the infection to those who are most vulnerable, and that is what I wanted to highlight on. The washing of hands and the wearing of masks has entered the narrative, although we did hear of washing hands last week, and we also heard about staying at home, but this is now mentioning to mask up. So tell me, guys, where have you heard this before, and if at all you can remember hearing this at all in previous medical outbreaks or psychological operations, if you will. We are now at Yahoo News, where they are reposting an article from Men's Health. It come out within the last 4 hours that says doctors are bracing for a rough flu season. They say you need to look out for this one symptom. Compared to other years, yeah, it's sort of a little bit confusing. It like made it you think you were reading the article, but you actually weren't. But compared to other years, there's a concern that this season's influenza strain may end up causing more severe symptoms and lead to more hospitalizations, says Michael Davis, who is a DO and an MPH, an infectious disease specialist at Parkview Health. Along with the flu, you also need to watch out for an uptick of other respiratory viruses spreading at this time of year. If you notice this symptoms, it's likely the flu. The earliest and most obvious sign of this year's flu is a sudden high fever, and the dominant strain is going to strike hard and fast, David warns. While cold and flu viruses have similar incubation periods between 1 to 2 days, this year's flu induces more rapid symptoms compared to a cold, which usually starts gradually with a sore throat and congestion, although high fevers are rare for a cold. The high fever might make someone realize they are actually sick because it is what typically makes you feel so bad, says Gerard Fox, who is an MD, an infectious disease specialist at Orlando Health. Though he notes other flu symptoms, chills, headaches, body aches, and a sore throat still apply to the new influenza strain and are likely to be more severe, Davis says, to expect flu symptoms to persist for about a week. Why experts are bracing for a rough flu season. There are two main types of influenza, as we know, blah, 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 blah. Let's skip past that. Historically, H3N2 carries a risk more to carry more severe illness and a lower vaccine effectiveness, and that is the strain Subclade K. The mutated version of H3N2 that is causing problems. Davis says to make matters worse, in the southern hemisphere's winter season, it ended with the H2N2 variant Subclade K starting to evolve. Surveillance data from the United Kingdom has confirmed it was this variant that has become the dominant strain for their ongoing season. Why does this matter? The biggest issue is that scientists didn't anticipate this when making this year's flu vaccine, and Davis explains that the H3N2 component of the current flu vaccine was designed to protect against the J2 subclade, not the K strain in the virus. Excuse that little piece of noise pollution from my dogs that are barking at something, but it goes on to repeat over and over about the mismatch. Is it worth getting this year's flu shot? And both these individuals, Davis and Fox, say yes, while they both acknowledge that the flu shot may not be a perfect match, and we've heard that before, but there is hope that we will achieve some level of cross protection from the current vaccine to provide benefit, explains David. Some of the early data from England has shown similar vaccine efficiency related to hospital admissions compared to prior years, which has us hopeful. So there is that one. Let's go and find another. Right, this is also from Yahoo News, and this is from Monroe County, where flu cases are being reported to spike early, and the flu has arrived in Monroe County, kicking off an early start to what health officials feel will be a particularly severe sickness season, after reports of a vaccine-resistant flu strain taking hold worldwide. The State Department of Health has tracked nearly 18,000 flu cases statewide so far this year, twice as many as last season, but on par with the numbers from 23-24. That data only represents lab-confirmed flu cases, though doctors' visits is considered an underestimate of actual flu activity. Monroe County is leading Western New York with 442 cases this season, including 254 new cases during the week ending November the 22nd. State officials this week declared the flu is prevalent across New York, triggering a mask mandate for unvaccinated healthcare workers. This is how it starts, guys. I'm telling you, it is repeating, and there are echoes of the COVID era ringing loudly in this developing story regarding Subclade K. These flu numbers are somewhat higher than one might expect for this time period of in fall, said Dr. Mallory Velez de Brown, the country's public health commissioner. Winter hasn't quite started despite the snow on the ground. What is the Subclade variant is what we know about. We've heard that before. The variant mutated after this year's vaccine was already developed. What are the chances of that? And it was already developed, meaning the flu shot will be less effective in fighting the virus this year round. These seasonal infections do tend to kind of sweep around the globe in very defined ways, Velez de Brown says. Unfortunately, that new variant has been noted to be a bit more virulent, so it did lead to higher rates of people being symptomatic, of folks being sick enough to need hospitalization. With that circulating in the community, I think we can anticipate a pretty strong flu season this year. Is it too late to get my flu shot? The article says, and Velez de Brown is urging Monroe County residents to get their flu shot. While the vaccine may not offer full protection against Subclade K, it will prevent or reduce the symptoms. So there was that one again from the last few hours, and that one is coming out of Monroe County. So that is the first article we have read today that is coming out of the United States, but we are going to get through to a couple more. But let me just throw a video in quickly that I did find that was uploaded around about 15 to 16 hours ago on YouTube for your informative purposes, and then we'll get back with some articles from the last few days.
Flu experts are warning that the 2025-2026 flu season could be a rough one. That's largely because of Subclade K, a flu variant that has emerged this year. So, what is Subclade K? Is this year's flu vaccine any match for it? And what about it is making experts nervous about the upcoming flu season? All that and more in this week's status report. Last year was a very bad flu season. It was the worst since the 2020-2021 season, when COVID measures like social distancing and masking are credited for bringing flu transmission down to virtually zero. In fact, every year since 2021 has had increasing amounts of flu hospitalizations. There are two main types of flu A viruses, H1N1 and H3N2. Of the two, H3N2 is considered to be more dangerous, and it's H3N2 that is mutated into the new Subclade K variant. To understand why this is worrying, here's a refresher on how flu vaccines work. Every year, the World Health Organization identifies the flu strains it believes are more likely to spread in the upcoming season. Fragments from those virus strains are used by vaccine manufacturers to create that year's vaccine. Those fragments trigger the immune system to create antibodies, which prepare the body to fight off those strains if they are encountered. But the vaccine can't prepare the immune system for every type of flu. If a different flu is encountered, or if the original strains have mutated, the antibodies may not recognize them, making it more likely that the virus will trigger an infection. In this past summer, the original strain did mutate with Subclade K. And by then, it was too late for the vaccine manufacturers to use fragments from Subclade K in this year's flu shots. Stat's infectious diseases correspondent, Helen Branswell, recently spoke to several flu experts about the upcoming flu season, why it might come early this year, why this year's shot may not be as robust, and why despite this, it is still vital to get a flu shot. I'll talk with Helen about all that and more in just a sec. But first, if you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe. Every week, Status Report will keep you up to date with all the most important news in health and medicine. It's a little click, but it helps us out a lot. Okay, let's chat with Helen. Hey, Helen, thanks so much.
Nice to be here.
So the CDC just released a new flu report. Did it say anything about how prevalent Subclade K is right now?
Yeah, it did. So they just posted on Monday the flu data for the week ending November 22nd, just before Thanksgiving. And it shows that at present, the vast majority of viruses that are circulating are influenza A. As you mentioned earlier in your intro, flu A comes in two types, H1N1 and H3N2. H3N2 is the predominant virus so far this year. It makes up about 80% of the viruses that have been tested so far. And of the H3N2 viruses that have been tested so far, Subclade K viruses make up about 57%. So it is definitely out there in significant numbers.
So this year's flu vaccine might not be a great match for Subclade K, but flu experts you spoke to still recommend getting vaccinated. Why is that?
Well, there are a few reasons. For one thing, H3N2 is not the only virus, and even though it's the predominant virus right now, that may change over the season. That is seen quite commonly at the beginning of the season. Sometimes you have a lot of influenza A activity, and then late in the season you can have a surge of influenza B activity. So just because the vaccine may not be super well suited to H3N2 right now, doesn't mean it wouldn't offer protection against H1N1 or influenza B viruses. And, as I mentioned a minute ago, Subclade K makes up about 57% of the H3N2 viruses that are circulating right now, but that means 43% of the viruses, the H3N2 viruses, are not Subclade K. In addition, even if, somebody is vaccinated and encounters a Subclade K virus, it doesn't mean that the vaccine would offer them no protection at all. Scientists in the United Kingdom, where there's been a very early start to their flu season, largely because of H3N2 Subclade K, did a study looking at people who've been recently vaccinated, and they found that there was good protection against getting sick enough to require hospital care. from the vaccine.
Is there any indication that Subclade K is causing more severe illness?
Not at present, no. I checked with people, flu experts I know in Hong Kong, which had a very early flu season, largely driven by Subclade K, and in Australia, which had a long extension of their flu season because of the emergence of Subclade K. In both cases, there were a lot of cases. In Hong Kong, there were even a lot of hospitalizations, but there was no indication that there was increased severity from the infection.
In some other countries you mentioned are having an early flu season. Is that going to be the case here in the U.S.?
Well, so far the data don't show a strikingly early season. The last few years, right about now has been about the time that the flu season has started to kick into gear. And that's not uncommon when you think about the amount of travel and intergenerational mingling that happens during Thanksgiving. It's a perfect opportunity for flu to take off. That said, sometimes flu season doesn't take off until sort of January, but it's really not uncommon for activity to start to pick up in late November, early December. And if you look at this season's sort of epi curve so far, it's very similar to the last few years.
So many folks that study influenza say that trying to predict flu season is a bit of a fool's errand. Why is that?
Because flu will always do the thing you don't think it's going to do. I mean, there are some givens, flu will generally come back, but flu is just a very unpredictable virus. You can see it in flu studies. People set up a study to try to see how the virus does, and it's a one-season study, and the virus just doesn't cooperate. A recent example, there was data published by Pfizer in the New England Journal of Medicine recently. They did a phase 3 trial trying to see how well their modified mRNA flu vaccine worked. And in that season, there was almost no flu B, so they couldn't give any kind of an estimate of how well the vaccine worked against flu B. That's really common with flu. You just never know exactly what it's going to do.
And lastly, and most importantly, do you think Sidney Crosby and Conor McDavid are going to take it to Team USA this year in Milan?
Yes.
All right.
What did you expect from a Canadian?
Helen, thanks so much. I appreciate the time. It's always good talking.
Okay.
Thanks, Helen. It's always great to chat. And I'm looking forward to being bitter rivals in a couple months from now. And I'm excited for next week's video. Status Report is taking the show on the road for ASH 2025. I'll be at the American Society of Hematology's 66th annual meeting in Exposition to learn what's new with blood. And if you're going to be in Orlando for Bloodapalooza, come say hi at our Stat at ASH event Friday night from 6 to 9 p.m. Otherwise, I hope to see you here next week. Same stat time, same stat channel.
We're now at wbay.com, which I think is out of Wisconsin. New flu strain is causing a concern. Green Bay, Wisconsin. The US may be heading towards another severe flu season. It is driven by lagging vacations and a new strain of the virus. It's causing early surges in places like United Kingdom, Canada, and Japan. How long is it before it starts to surge in the United States? Time will only tell, if it tells at all. But infectious disease experts call this strain different. It's called Subclade K. It is a mutated strain of influenza that is causing concern for the weeks ahead, especially as flu season wraps up. Doctors say the mutations may influence how effective the flu vaccine is going to be for the current season, but health officials say that it is still important to get the flu vaccine. That's because the latest strain is just one of the 3 that typically circulate in a season, and getting vaccinated will provide some protection. Doctors say if you are protected and get sick from the flu, the symptoms may be less severe, health experts say. and it appears that many Americans are skipping their flu vaccines this year. Maybe that's why there's a rampant variant mutation on the rise. But last winter's flu season was severe. The US had the highest rates of flu hospitalizations in nearly 15 years. At least 280 children died of influenza, so they're adding the infant death count to this particular article for sensationalism. And the combination of a new strain and an upcoming holiday travel, experts fear that this season could be just as bad. Doctors want to remind you to keep those personal care measures to keep protected against the flu, and that includes good hand washing. If you do get the flu, there are treatments available. Health officials say there are antiviral medications that are effective against influenza, but they need to be started early. Doctors say if you feel sick, it's important to test for flu so it can be treated early. Testing also helps your doctor confirm that the illness isn't another kind of respiratory infection. And that was that for WisconsinBay.com. So there is another state that is now reporting on Subclade K. So let's see if we can go and find another from the last 24 hours for you.
A first alert, the U.S. may be heading toward another severe flu season. It's driven by lagging vaccinations and a new strain of the virus that's causing early surges in places like the United Kingdom, Canada, and Japan. Aisha Morales is at the First Alert Safety Desk.
Infectious disease experts are calling this strain different. It's called Subclade K. It's a mutated strain of influenza that's causing concern for the weeks ahead, especially as flu season ramps up. Doctors say the mutations may influence how effective the flu vaccine is going to be for the current season, but health officials say it's still important to get the flu vaccine. That's because this latest strain is just one of 3 that typically circulate in a season, and getting vaccinated will provide some protection. Doctors say if you're protected and get sick from the flu, those symptoms may be less severe. Health experts say it appears many Americans are skipping their flu vaccines this year. Last winter's flu season was severe. The U.S. had its highest rates of flu hospitalizations in nearly 15 years, and at least 280 children died of influenza last season. And the combination of a new strain and upcoming holiday travel, experts fear this season could be just as bad. Doctors want you to remember to keep up those personal care measures to protect against the flu. That includes good hand washing as often as possible. If you do get the flu, there are treatments available. Health officials say there's antiviral medications that are really effective against influenza, but they need to be started early. Doctors say if you feel sick, it is important to test for the flu so it can be treated early. Testing also helps your doctor confirm that the illness isn't another kind of respiratory infection. Back to you.
Right, this article from prevention.com come out within the last 9 hours, although it says norovirus versus the flu. How to tell the difference according to doctors. Some symptoms may overlap, but treatment and the prevention methods differ. Cases of norovirus and the flu are jumping around the country. Both viruses can make you sick for days. Here's what infectious disease doctors want you to know about the difference between these viruses. And it feels like everyone is sick right now, and you're not imagining things. Flu season is in full force, FF there, and cases are jumping around the country thanks to an intense strain known as Subclade K that's happening alongside an increase in cases of norovirus. So this is the first I'm hearing of an increase in norovirus. So it looks like they're going for a double whammy here, guys, with illnesses that are both very similar but need to be treated differently. While these are 2 very different viruses, they are being lumped together right now as people talk about the onslaught of winter illnesses swirling around. In terms of norovirus versus the flu, how do you tell which you have when the symptoms overlap? So sort of suggesting you might get them both. There are a few differences. What's going on with this article? There are a few differences, but these viruses also have some things in common. Sick with something and aren't sure what it is. The only way to know for sure is to see a healthcare provider. But there are a few key signs that could be that you could be dealing with one virus or the other. You might reach for meds or chicken soup. But which remedy really is the most effective? We rank them so you can nix your syphilis fast. Vitamin C. So norovirus versus the flu. These viruses don't overlap much in terms of symptoms, but the flu is principally a respiratory infection. It involves the head, nose, throat, and chest, says William Schaffner. We heard from Schaffner before in that last upload about Subclade K, an infection disease specialist at Vanderbilt. Norovirus is an intestinal infection and involves the stomach and the rest of the intestines. We think of them as quite different illnesses. It is not common, but the flu can sometimes cause GI issues as well, points out Amish A. Abalala. I'm not sure if I'm reading that correct, but all the A's there, A's are triple A. A senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. In some cases, gastronomical symptoms such as vomiting can occur with influenza, he says. This is more common in pediatric patients as the virus can cause inflammation in the gastrointestinal tract. Some of the norovirus symptoms are diarrhea, vomiting, nausea, stomach pain, fever, headache, and body aches. But these are the main symptoms of the flu as per the CDC: fever or feeling feverish, cough and sore throat, runny or stuffy nose, muscle or body aches, headaches and fatigue. The most important difference is that with norovirus you feel like you want to die for that period when you have a double orifice disease with vomiting and diarrhea, says Thomas Russo, who is a professor in chief of infectious diseases at the University of Buffalo in New York. Generally, as long as everyone is adequately hydrated, norovirus is not a lethal disease, but flu is potentially a lethal disease. Norovirus versus the flu infection. Noroviruses and flu have a few things in common in terms of how you get each. Norovirus is highly contagious, says Dr. Rosso, noting that it only takes a few viral particles to make you sick. The virus is in your gastrointestinal sections, and he says if you get those on your hands, then touch your mouth, you could get sick. You can also get norovirus from eating contaminated food and even from breathing in viral particles that are aerosoled when somebody with the virus vomits, says Dr. Rosso. You can get the flu by coming in contact with droplets of aerosols released by people with the virus. Russo continues, and it is possible to get the flu from touching an infected surface and then touching your hands, nose and mouth. But he points out that this is less common than other ways he has listed. There is a difference how long these illnesses last too. Norovirus lasts a few days before symptoms abute. Influenza are about a week, though cough and fatigue may persist longer. So again, let's not get too far into this. Let's see if they say anything about wearing masks and washing your hands. While there's no public health agency recommended for this, Dr. Russo suggests putting on a mask if you need to care for someone with norovirus, and the mask will protect you from aerosols and block your nose and mouth, he points out. But both of these viruses spread easily, making them tough to avoid, especially if someone else in your household is sick. So there you go, guys. Another repeating narrative about washing hands and wearing masks. Let's see what's next. Another one circulating on Yahoo News, reprinting a Woman Health, an article from Women's Health. You're not imagining it, the flu is already bad this year and it's being fueled by a new variant. Not going to get too into it. You can almost feel your eyes glaze over when you're faced with yet another reminder to get your annual flu shot. But there is some new information that's surfacing to suggest you might want to make it a priority if you haven't gotten one yet. Flu data in the US was backed up for weeks during the start of the flu season due to the government shutdown, but we are now caught up and the latest information is not pretty. Flu cases are increasing across the country following warnings of intense flu seasons ahead for the UK and Canada. Couple that with the highly infectious strain of the flu dominating cases and infectious disease, doctors say we could be in for a particularly bad flu seasons. Here's what you need to do. There's AAA again, Thomas Rosso, so the same characters. And it is very paramount for the psychological operation to maintain the integrity of the narrative, which is why you're hearing the same narrative over and over and over and again in many of these articles, which is kind of why I'm highlighting so many of them, so you can see that they are all sort of reading from the same script. But do bear in mind that some of these publications are all owned by the sort of same conglomerate, and will probably pass down the sort of one memo via the various outlets that are under that one umbrella. And, you know, some of these TV stations and such for all syndicated and belong to, you know, other news partnerships. So it isn't that uncommon, but at the same time, it is a very, very, you know, telling of a psychological operation to repeat the same narrative over and over again and maintain its integrity and prevent it from sort of cascading into avenues of alternative discussions. And even the controlled narrative is very, very controlled. But getting down to here, is it still worth getting a flu shot? Of course it is, according to the experts. It's still important to get it, although at any age over 6 months, though it will be imperfect against preventing infection. There is data that the vaccine does not do a reasonable job at preventing emergency department visits and landing in the hospital, says Dr. Rood, but it still will provide significant protection against severe diseases. It's a little bit like saying, don't worry that the condoms used in got a hole in it. It might prevent you from contracting something that will make your junk itch. But let's see if there is anything here. There's been a lot of talk and changes on the federal level around vaccine approval and access, making it fair to wonder about your ability to get flu vaccines in the future. Doctors say there is some uncertainty here, and Dr. AAA points out that the current season's vaccines are already out, therefore unlikely to be impacted. But he said it's not clear how much flu vaccine access may be affected in the future. So this one's saying that there might not be enough vaccines to go around. So you might want to go out and get yourself jabbed up for this season's flu as soon as possible if you want to take the advice of the individual who wrote this article. So let me click out of there. We're not going to go into too many, but you can see here from 1 day ago, that was the one that we just read from 3 days ago. We will read this one from today because this is a sort of recognizable outlet, publication or brand. Do you have norovirus or the flu? This was from yesterday. Both illness spread. Doctors reveal how to tell the difference. Is there a video there?
This year called H3N2 are on the rise in some 39 states so far. The virus is known to cause more severe symptoms than last year's virus. In addition, a mutated version of the virus is spreading rapidly in several countries like Canada and England. The mutated strain emerged too late for scientists to update this season's vaccine, but experts say the vaccine will still offer protection throughout the flu season.
All right.
So not very much there that we haven't heard already multiple times before in these articles. Can I get rid of that? Will it let me go? No, it won't. Yes, it will. No, it won't. But yeah, there you go. So that was from yesterday, and it's reading exactly from the same script. So we'll click back out of there because that website was beginning to get a little bit problematic. 13 hours ago, flu season has started early this year. A new variant might be to blame. Have we read that one? This is from The Conversation. No, we haven't. This was, as I said, from 13 hours ago. Every winter, respiratory viruses, especially influenza, SARS-CoV and RSV, put a huge pressure. I think we have read that one. It sounds very familiar if we haven't, or it's just a copy and pasted of a previous article. So 7 hours ago, doctors are bracing. That's from Men's Health. Subclade K flu gets an early start in Japan and could affect the United States. That was from 2 days ago from the United Press International via Yahoo. A new type of flu emerges. What to know about the new K variant of influenza A, and the new strain is a variation of influenza A. Technically, it's called the subclade of influenza A. 4 days ago, new mutated flu strain Subclade K raises concerns as cases spread, and that was from 3 days ago. 1 day ago, new flu variant increases outbreak concerns in school. That is from The Hill, so let's read that one. New flu variants. This is obviously targeting or involving children. Despite a relatively slow start to the flu season, US schools are preparing for an increase in absences in sick children as a new variant gains momentum. A new flu vaccine for 25-26 could be less effective against H3N2 Subclade K, which has already caused spikes in hospitalizations in countries including Canada and the UK. Experts stress that the vaccine will still one of the best tools for avoiding a bad flu season, and that children should stay home when they are sick, as schools are struggling with vaccine hesitancy and increased chronic attendeeism rates. Although the number of US influenza viruses analyzed so far is low because of low domestic flu activity, most have been H3N2 viruses, and among those H3N2 Subclade K viruses have been the most common. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention said, while the vaccine, we know all of this, even an imperfect influenza vaccine, let's say it shaves 30% off your influenza risks, it's still probably shaving even more off your risk of getting severe influenza, meaning you're only 30% as likely to get the flu shot as getting it. If you don't, there you go, you've got a 30% chance of not getting it if you take the shot. The likelihood of going through the ICU is much lower. If your likelihood of getting hospitalized is much lower, your likelihood of death is much lower if you get the vaccine, is what they're saying. All of those things together cumulatively affect the risk and efficiency of any given influenza vaccine. And so when we look at getting the flu shot this year, I don't think it's really a decision. The decision is, how lucky do you feel? Do you feel lucky, punk? Dirty Harry. The CDC found that the 24-25 school year vaccination rate dipped to 92.1% for the diphtheria, tetanus, and aquilar pertussis vaccine, and up to 92.5% for the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines and polio vaccine for kindergarteners. For the 2019-20 school year, vaccinations were at 94.9% among kindergarteners versus 95.2% according to the CDC. Exceptions for vaccines rose in the same school year to 3.6% from 3.3%. The numbers don't lie, folks. The numbers don't lie. So let's click out of that one. It's becoming a little bit difficult. So let's just click on page 2. And we're actually using Presearch, not Google, for this, because Presearch actually was providing far more results from the last few days and few hours, unlike Google, which we will just click on and show you what I mean. But South Carolina, here you go, from one day ago, there's another state sees its first flu death of the season. Let's click on that one. South Carolina sees its first flu death of the season, and Georgia has 2. Should we click on the video? Let's read first a little bit about this. Unfortunately, we see many deaths, hospitalizations, and other serious complications of flu each year in our state, Dr. Linda Bell expressed, but getting vaccinated against this disease is the best way to prevent serious illnesses and death. I recommend that all of us who are able to get our shot do so as soon as possible. There is some more noise pollution from my fucking dogs. Shall we click the video? It looks like it's an ad, so I'm going to not continue to play that. So there you go. There are some deaths being reported in South Carolina and Georgia. Men's Health, we saw that. Bipartisan Obamacare deal remains out of reach. Nothing to do with Subclade there. There's another from prevention, norovirus versus the flu. A new strain is causing concern in the United States from Green Bay. We saw that one. Flu activity is rising, especially in these states from a day ago from the Hill. What states is it rising in, I wonder? Will let us know. Nationwide, there has become a 5% week-over-week increase in positive flu tests, according to the CDC data released on Monday. But in a few states, the rise in cases has been even steeper. For the first time this flu season, 2 states, Colorado and Louisiana, have broken into the high category for flu activity. New York City, which tracks its data separately from New York State, is also showing moderate flu activity. While most states are still seeing low or minimal flu activity, the recent data still shows cases trending upward just 3 weeks prior. Every U.S. state was in the lowest tier minimal category. The data released by the CDC is on a delay, so it doesn't yet include the week of Thanksgiving, when many people were expected to travel and gather in large groups. So expect a spike in this soon, I would suspect. Public health experts are concerned the low vaccination rates will contribute to a bad season like last year's winter. The flu hospitalization rate was the highest in 15 years. The uptick in flu activity also comes as a new subvariant of the virus, the subclade, has emerged, and it now makes up to the majority of the H3N2 cases, as we're hearing over and over again. And experts are seeing H3N2 influenza, which is historically caused more hospitalizations and deaths, is what we're seeing more of this year. Cases are expected to continue rising as we get deeper into the typical US flu season. While it varies year to year, flu activity typically picks up in December and peaks between January and March. So there we go, guys. I'm going to click out of there and take you over to Google very quickly before we wrap this up, just to see what Google is showing. So as promised, here we are at Google, where I have typed Subclade K in the search bar, as you can see, and we're not going to click on too many, if any, of these articles. We are just going to sort of scroll down and see that within the last 2 days, new flu variant Subclade K is spreading in Japan, and that is from Nippon.com, which I believe is a Japanese agency. Women's Health, we saw that one. Today.com from a week ago, a new severe flu variant is spreading in the US. Watch for these symptoms. A week ago from ABC News, how to protect kids amid a new Subclade K flu strain. New York Post, a week ago, Subclade K flu strain that's causing spikes in the UK and Canada. Everything you need to know about Subclade K, the flu and vaccine from 3 weeks ago, and we reported on that in the first Subclade K upload on this channel. SIDRAP with an absent CDC and mismatched Subclade. There's my fucking dogs providing more noise, motherfucking pollution, the little shits. There's another one from 3 weeks ago. Why Subclade K could make a nasty flu season from the Hill a week ago. The government.uk flu vaccine from providing important protection despite new Subclade K variant from 3 weeks ago. So Google isn't providing as much information as a pre-search was. Let's just come over to the all section of Google, and we can see that there is a video from 13 hours ago that we included in this short one. Here is one from 2 days ago about Subclade spreading in Japan. One from 13 hours ago, the conversation, the flu season has started early. A new variant could bring another severe flu season. Here's what to know. That is from NBC4 Washington from a day ago. And that one from Women's Health. So there you go, guys. There's one from Fox 29 Philadelphia 3 days ago. A new mutated flu strain, Subclade K, rises concerns as causes spread. That is the last one we're going to read. And the only reason we're reading this one because it's out of Philadelphia, the home of my illustrious partner Rena in crime, Al Sweet Cheeks 78. The new mutated flu strain, Subclade K, raises concerns as cases spread. The brief we know about Philadelphia, a new flu variant called Subclade K is gaining attention as doctors warn it could lead to a tougher flu season this winter. And the strain, which stems from influenza A H3N2 virus, has already been identified in several countries and may be spreading more easily than earlier versions of H3N2, according to the CDC. What we know is Subclade K first surfaced overseas and has since risen spreading quickly in circulation, according to reporting from ABC News. Early indications show that this strain may be more infectious and is causing notable spikes in flu activity amongst children. Health experts told ABC News that Subclade K is still considered a form of seasonal flu and not a new virus. However, its mutations may make it harder for the body to recognize if a person has not been recently exposed to similar strains. Doctors say symptoms remain typical of influenza: fever, cough, sore throat, body aches, fatigues, and in some cases, complications such as ear infections or pneumonia. Why should you care? Health officials say the 25-26 flu vaccine was formulated before Subclade emerged. We've heard that in every single article we have heard regarding Subclade K, meaning the match may not be ideal, but according to the CD, even a partial vaccine match can significantly reduce the risk of severe illnesses, hospitalizations, and complications. Experts told Today.com that Subclade K's genetic changes may help it spread faster, especially in schools and child care settings. Pediatricians have reported rising concern about the strain's impact on younger patients. Subclade K is raising alarms because it carries 7 new mutations, according to Today.com, and this is making it more difficult for the immune system to recognize. The strain was first detected in Europe in June after scientists already selected the components for this year's flu shots. How to protect yourself. Doctors and health agencies continue to stress the basics. Get a flu shot. Seek treatment earlier. Stay home when sick, and use everyday precautions such as hand washing, avoiding close contact with sick individuals, and masking in high-risk settings can help. What's next? The CDC says it's monitoring how widely Subclade K spreads in the United States and how well the flu vaccine will perform against it. Health officials are expecting to release new data as soon as the season progresses. So there is where we will leave it, folks. As I've said, this is a developing story, but I am not reporting on it to cause along, nor am I suggesting or predicting that we are going to see a wild-scale global pandemic and a return to lockdowns and self-imposed quarantines. I am just highlighting that this story is beginning to develop a little bit of momentum, and we are now 1 week later after I have reported on it, hearing that it is starting to rise within the United States of America. So as of always, guys, you know the drill. Make of it what you will. Do with this information as you choose. But if we are trying to create a change of information, spreading news that is not otherwise being that reported elsewhere, then the communication chain begins and ends with you. That being said, folks, all that remains for me to say is until next time, be excellent to each other. May the force be with us, and take care until I see you again. This is RD signing out for now.
Sit, Ubu, sit. Good dog.
Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes!
Hey, Luke. May the force be with you.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.